Schools literally miss the best parts of a subject or a topic to give us absolute dog shit of a content, right? They miss the most important parts, the most fun parts, which are actually the one which make the subject actually enjoyable, readable, and everything. And they just give us the slop that no one actually cares about and is absolute garbage. Today, we'll discuss this. About me, I'm Prateek, and I went from an average student to the top of my entire grade. I got 97% in my 10th board exams, and I'll tell you how to do the same without any coaching, tuition, books, or references, right? So, let's start the video. You know, there are subjects which are just bad as they are. Let's say language subjects, they just have theory, right? Then let's say subjects like geography, they don't have anything much interesting in them. They're like, alright, this is what the subject is. Even the most interesting part of geography is like tectonic plates or some shit, right? Now one can argue that it can be mountains or whatever, but no, that only comprises of 0.001% of geography. The actual interesting part for the people who are enthusiastic is something which most people do not find interesting. These are one type of subjects. This includes subjects like again geography, languages, English studies, and everything. Right? Now, there are some subjects which are actually kind of interesting. Like really, they are very interesting, but schools or the teachers make them sound and look so uninteresting, so boring that students would rather prefer leaving these subjects rather than actually studying them in detail to find the actual gold mine. It's like that one meme where the person is in underground and he's mining and mining, but the gold is at the end, but he just leaves it just before he hits the gold. That's the point. So, this includes subjects like math, physics, chemistry, history, political science, sociology. Like these subjects may sound boring to you. Math might sound bad and many people hate it. But if you actually understand what math is about, or if you actually understand what history is about, you'll actually you start loving those subjects because the subject or the actual study that is not bad, but how it is taught that is stupid. The way that it is taught is so bad, so pathetic that literally students usually do not even have a choice but to just leave the subject as a whole. Let's talk about maths. Alright, so maths, I believe, is the best subject. So many people might disagree and say that it's stupid or whatever. Why? Because what they see of maths is just intersecting lines, learning theorems, learning circle identities, learning trig identities without actually understanding what it means. But if you actually start going deep in math, then you'll realize that what school teaches us is not even the surface of it, right? Like relations, functions, domains, ranges, this all does not even matter at the end. These are just basic things which, by the time when we actually get into maths, do not even make sense. It's like the difference between maths and mathematics. Mathematics is a completely different thing, and math is like the surface level of it, even below surface level. Why? Because it does not have any of the fun thing or the thing which makes it interesting. Like, let's say we have the example of Ramanujan sum 1 plus 2 plus 3 and so on gives minus 1 by 12. Or the identities related to summations, the geometric progression, arithmetic progression, and everything. Right? These things are actually interesting. Or how cos x and cos of minus x give cos x, like the same thing. But sin x and sin minus x are different. These are things which make you question what is actually going on. And then prime numbers, like such a basic thing like prime numbers, no one knows what their pattern is. No one knows what they are actually composed of, right? Or the Riemann hypothesis, or the Collard's conjecture. All these things make you understand that even in pure maths, there are a lot of things that we just don't know. And basically, every part of science, be it bio, chemistry, or physics, is derived from pure maths. Because pure maths is the major branch, then comes physics, and through physics is chemistry, and mainly through chemistry, but also including physics, is bio. So, pure math is the literal soul of science. Then, maths is also used in all these weird ass things like navigation or whatever, but I'm sure that you don't care about that, and me neither. Like, I don't care about a plane going at a speed of 500 kilometer whatever, right? I don't care about that. But rather, I care about the eigenvalues, the functions, how relations and functions change. What is the derivative, the integral? Like when you actually start making the integral sign, you'll realize that it is like cool. It is just so good that you'd want to do it more, right? That's why, like in ninth grade or in 8th grade, I was doing the syllabus of grade 11. In 5th grade, I was doing grade 10 syllabus. In 10th grade of maths, by the way, in 10th grade, I was doing grade 11, 12, or even some concepts that were out of school, right? Like that came in pure maths, that like analysis and everything. I was doing that. Then in grade 11, I am literally making my own hypotheses and theories. That's the point. You slowly, gradually come to love it because math is amazing. Math is a thing which gives rise to so many other things, which is the literal soul of every part of human civilization, right? And when you actually look at the cool things like making the sum sign, like the sigma sign, or making the integral sign, making the dy dx thing, or writing the partial derivative thing, you'll actually understand that this is actually very cool. Then let's move on to the next subject, which is physics. So many people hate physics, and I don't like it either. But the only thing that keeps me going is the cool things in physics. Again, it might sound cliche or whatever, like cool things, but just think about it. Physics is full of things which are actually very interesting. Quantum mechanics, that's the basis of physics, and it is one of the most interesting things in the whole world, like the whole learning and education. It's one of the most interesting things because it is full of randomness. No one actually knows what's happening. Then there comes actual scientists whose name that you have heard. For example, Maxwell, Einstein, Niels Bohr, Rutherford, and so on. All these scientists are directly or indirectly related to quantum mechanical model of atom. And then we have Heisenberg, Schrodinger. Like these names sound cool as themselves. So just think, what do these people actually do that make them so famous? And then think about quantum mechanics, quantum theory, or the orbitals, the shells, the subshells. Just think about those things. Then in physics, we have things like electricity, how electricity travels in wires actually. What was the Tesla tower? What did Edison actually do? How does the bulb actually work? All these things. When you actually start looking at these things, you realize that school basically taught us nothing. Like, in my ninth or 10th grade, like we are combining both, in those grade books, there was literally nothing that was worth it actually. The most interesting thing that I found was that we had a graph given and we had to find the area of a square in that graph for so that we could find the total displacement. That this was physics in the school, right? This was physics according to the syllabus, like what students should learn. But actual physics is nothing like this. It's totally different. Electromagnetic radiations, fields, the electricity, the current, electrons, particles, Higgs boson, and so many things. All these things that you hear, like black holes and white stars, dwarf stars, whatever. All these things are actually concepts of physics. But people do not just reach there because they just think, okay, whatever, it will take a lot of time, right? Then let's talk about history. History is one of my favorite subjects. Basically, the second favorite subject. Reason? Because history is about so many more things. It has this effect as so much more than the subjects like maths and physics. Why? Because history is literally the study of human civilization. And human civilization is very, very, very interesting and very fun if you actually understand it and you want to learn more about it. Right? Now, many people, when they start reading history, what they see? They see just dates, people saying something like, okay, this was Duke Metternich or whatever, and he said this thing, whatever. They just see these things and they think, okay, history must be boring because there are people and dates. Right? But when you actually look at the events, the actual occurrences that occur in that time, then you realize how cool history is. In my ninth grade book, there was a chapter in history about Nazism and Hitler's reign and everything. Alright? In that chapter, there was World War II was naturally to be included. And World War II's part was basically just 2 pages And the economic conditions of Nazi Germany was given 2 or 3 pages as a whole. Just think about it. World War II, a war which was so important that it was one of the most deadliest wars in human history. It basically had all these various important and interesting things like Operation Barbarossa, how Hitler was basically tried to be assassinated by a lot of people, by a lot of countries, the actual like decisions made by Winston Churchill and everything. Then we have Pearl Harbor incident, Hiroshima Nagasaki incident, all these things, all of them condensed into just 1 page or barely 2 pages. And the economic conditions, what was the cultural impact, and all these things. These were given 5 to 6 pages as a whole. Like, what does this even mean? If you're teaching about Nazism, then no one actually cares about the economic conditions, right? I only care about what actually happened because history is literally about what happened. If you want to learn about economic conditions, then go to economics, then teach it in economics. If you want to learn about the conditions of sociology, like what was the actual ideology of Nazism, what they actually did to people, then go to sociology. Why are you teaching it in history? That's the point, right? There are like so many incidents, like Operation Barbarossa, one of the worst mistakes in the whole World War. The operation was so bad that it was the point when Germany effectively lost the war. Like, there was nothing given for that. And when I actually researched it, I realized that wait, this is a lot more than what they are telling us. Like, it was basically 1 or 2 paragraphs given in the book, and then I realized that the war of Leningrad and Stalingrad, all these things were one of the most major wars in the whole history of World War II. Like, I literally got goosebumps just talking about it. That's how deadly and how cool these wars were. Like, not saying, of course, the wars are cool or whatever, but rather just their impact, their occurrence, everything was so amazing. But they were just given a title of Operation Barbarossa held in 21 June and whatever. Then it ended by the defeat of Nazi Germany. Of course, like, you give one of the most interesting concepts in the history of human civilization in 1 or 2 paragraphs and then call it a day. Of course. Then let's talk about Europe. Treaty of Vienna. The economic conditions of that treaty, like how it affected everyone, how many tariff barriers there were, that was given 2 or 3 pages. But when we talk about the actual occurrence, like Netherlands and Belgium conflict, the France after Napoleon, all these things were basically given 2 or 3 paragraphs and done. Like, what is this? Are you teaching us history or sociology and economics combined? What are you actually doing? Now, after all this, you must have understood that actually subjects are pretty cool. If you look at any subject, except the ones which are literally about theory itself, let's say literature, except these subjects, any other subject is very, very interesting. As I gave the example of geography, even geography can be interesting, but you just have to look into it, right? Now the question comes, why don't then schools teach us the cool things? Well, the first answer that everyone would give is pretty simple, that the cool things cannot directly appear when you don't even know the basics, right? Like, you cannot understand the reasons of World War II without knowing about the like the economic impacts that Treaty of Versailles had on Germany, right? One answer can be this, that because the basics are important. But this is not the problem. Of course, teach us the basics. Like, the basics are, of course, important. But the point is that if you are about to teach us the basics, then at least do it in such a way that is interesting. Instead of just saying it in a bland line, like Germany started printing a lot of money, that's why there was high amount of currency and hence inflation. And then during the decline of the Nazi Germany, people were poor or whatever. Instead of just giving in that line or in that tone, just spice it up a bit, and at least use less words and give less content to the non-interesting things. Like, you do not need 2 pages to discuss the economic conditions of Germany, or you do not need 3 or 4 pages to discuss the cultural impact of Roman Empire. You can just talk about them normally. Like, you just say that in how much words it is required, then done. You do not need a full ass paragraph or page in which you will tell us about the economic conditions. No one actually cares about that. And give impact or the content which is interesting. Like for history, it is the actual occurrences and events. Give those things in a way that is more elaborative and more fun to read, right? You could have discussed the whole Operation Barbarossa with us. You could have discussed why Pearl Harbor happened, but no, you just condensed it into a sentence and then called it a day. Of course. Similarly, for Roman Empire, right? It was one of the best empires in the history of human civilization. And what they teach us in the books, they just say that Romulus Augustus was the last ruler. Like, no one cares about that unless they actually know what's going on. Just teach them in what battle he won, how he won, what was the strategy he used. Teach us those things rather than these useless things about the paintings that those creators created. No one cares about that. Or if you have to teach that because you want to teach us the interesting things, then at least give them in a shorter way so that we do not have to read 4 pages of economic conditions just to read 2 lines of the event of Pearl Harbor, right? Similarly, in maths, the maths books are so bloated that they have so much useless content that basically half of the book is useless. Like circles. When do you actually need circle theorems if you are not even into geometry? Or let's say triangles, the ASA, SAS, or whatever the fuck. All these similarity properties or the congruence properties, you do not even need them in higher math. They are not important at all. And if you even have to teach them, then give them in such a way that after like 1 or 2 pages they are completed, because these chapters are literally nothing. In statistics, that chapter is actually important, but instead of actually telling us how the formula came or what was the derivation of the formula, they just tell us this is the formula and what are the impacts of the formula. Like, why do I care in maths what is the impact of the formula? Of course I don't give a shit about the impact. I just want to know why the formula came, how does it work, why it works, what values it gives. Like, you are understanding my point. I am not against teaching us the basics, but what I hate, and as you might be able to understand from my tone, that I absolutely hate this thing, is when education is just giving useless, bloated stuff in a lot of content pages. Like, a lot of pages are given just to this useless stuff, and the actually interesting part, which makes education what education is, it is given in just 2 or 3 lines. Like, what is this justice? What is this? That's what I hate. Now, if you ask your teachers about this, let's say you go to a teacher and say that, hey, while the chapter about World War II and everything, in that chapter, Operation Barbarossa is just given in one line or whatever. Can you teach me? Can you tell me what it actually was? The teachers themselves, first, are not paid enough to do that, right? Second, even if they don't usually know or care much about it, they just say that just stick to the syllabus, whatever is coming, that's important. Like, if you are just sticking to the syllabus, then what's the difference between you and a slave? You both are just following a particular thing to reach your goal so that you can keep yourself full of food, right? So what's the difference between you and a slave? Real education is not just sticking to the syllabus or memorizing the formula. That's actually this work of a slave, a work of a peasant, a work of a useless, mindless person. The actual education is to understand the concept of why. Why does this thing exist? Why is it going on? What is actually happening? That's the concept of education. Not this useless memorize the formula shit. Right? So teachers first, of course, would not tell you the answer because first they don't know, which is a general case. Even if they know, then they are not interested in telling a student, or they are like just too busy or whatever. If that happens, then a simple answer is first you can research on your own. Like, you are not a little kid. Even if you are just in 8th grade or 9th grade, you are still grown enough that you can research things on your own. Just search Operation Barbarossa and there are hundreds of videos on YouTube about it. Just search about, let's say, Ramanujan sum and there are hundreds of videos about it. Just start deriving formulas on your own. Just search about the Tesla tower. Just search about quantum mechanics. There are literally videos, courses, programs, and so much more about these things. So, first, do not blame your surroundings, because we, as students who actually want to study, we cannot just say that okay, it's because of this or that, because our parents won't buy us books, or our teachers won't tell us the answers. Okay, they don't. Then why cannot you find it on your own? When you have free time, you're just sitting around watching TV or whatever. But then you are asking later on, why are they not telling me the answer? If you want to know the answer so much, then just go and find the answer yourself. How difficult is it? And while this is true, while you can research, my favorite approach is using ChatGPT again. Like if you have watched my previous videos, you'd know that how much I actually like ChatGPT, because that thing is amazing. It will give you an answer to everything, every query that you have, any problem that you could have, and give you a step-by-step guide on how you can improve in that, right? So I ask, and I don't even ask, but rather I discuss it with ChatGPT, because it will give me correct information, and sometimes it doesn't, but that's the price you have to pay, right? So it will give me mostly correct information, and it will help me understand, and I'll have at least someone to discuss it with. If you have a friend or anything that who you can discuss it with, then that's amazing. But usually for many people there is not. So why not use an AI instead of making it an AI girlfriend wife or some shit? Just use it for studying. How difficult is it? And then just talk to it. Just say to it, talk to me like a friend. Like while it may sound cringe or whatever, if it is helping you, then it's helping you. Then just say, can you tell me about Operation Barbarossa? Can you tell me about eigenvalues? Can you tell me about the Roman Empire? Just ask it those things, and just hear or see what it says. And then slowly questions will pop into your mind on your own. Let's say it says that Operation Barbarossa was held on 21st June 1941 because of this or that, right? So then you ask that, okay, why was it on 21 June? Wasn't the armistice also on 21 June? Then it will tell you more answers, and slowly questions will pop into your mind. That's the way. Instead of just relying on your books or whatever, go to the internet, research it on your own, or go to an AI and discuss this with it. Or if you have a friend, then that's better. But usually we do not have friends like that, and even if we have, they are not much interested in listening to us. So that's why these two are the best approaches, right? Because as a person who wants to study, who wants to grow, who wants to be better, you cannot just blame your surroundings. Even if your surroundings are the worst, you are just played the worst hand possible. It's your responsibility to make it better. It's your responsibility to get out of the rut. That's the point, right? Now, if you want more help from me, like how to actually do some subjects, what is the best way, what are the timetables that I can follow, what's the way for making a timetable on Google Calendar, all these things, then I highly recommend you to join my program. It's only $5. Like $5 is basically a price of a half McDonald's or whatever. Like instead of spending it on a Happy Meal or some shit, you can basically pay half of it and get good marks in your career or in whatever you are studying, right? I'll tell you step by step how do you actually calculate the timetable or the time that you have to study, what is your work potential and everything. I'll tell you exactly those things step by step, how to actually study, how to actually grow. If you want that help from me, then I highly recommend you to click in the link in the description and join the program. For Indian buyers, there's an option for UPI payment. For international buyers, there's an option for Gumroad, which is $5, and the price is not different. Like it's not like Indian buyers will get it for more or less, but rather it's the same. So I highly recommend it to you. You can watch my previous video, join the program. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, work like a dog, live like a lion.